Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to download all the tools you need to start making your own iPhone apps. Then we'll create our first app. So if you're using macOS 10.7, go to the Mac App Store and search for Xcode. Click on Xcode in the search results. Now the first sentence is Xcode provides everything developers need to create great applications for Mac, iPhone, and iPad. That sounds like exactly what we're looking for, so let's go ahead and download it. My button here says install. Yours probably says free, and that's okay. Just go ahead and click it. While we're waiting for the download, let's look a little closer at the Xcode description. Notice it reads create great applications for Mac, iPhone, and iPad. In these lessons I won't be teaching anything about Mac development, but Mac development is very similar to iPhone development. And once you learn how to make great apps for iPhone and iPad, it's going to be really easy to pick up Mac development as well. Another really important thing that we get with Xcode is this iOS SDK. If you don't already know, iOS is the operating system on iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch. The iOS operating system is what manages all the resources on these iDevices like the touchscreen, the audio, and the memory, and it allows users to run the apps. The SDK part stands for Software Development Kit. Apple provides us with the SDK as our development gateway into iOS, and it gives us a lot of the built-in functionality that's typical on iOS, so it makes it easy to write apps that include features like the iOS list view you see in your Contacts app, and it makes it easier for us to recognize gestures like pinching and zooming. So don't worry a lot about the details of the iOS SDK right now, just know that it's there, and that's what we'll be using when we make our apps. After Xcode is finished downloading, let's install it. If you've downloaded apps from the Mac App Store before, the Xcode install process is a little different. The app won't just pop up in your dock, you actually need to run the install package. So to find that, go to your Applications folder and look for Install Xcode. Just run the installer with all the default options and you're good to go. The install will take 10 to 20 minutes. Okay, now that we've got Xcode installed, let's open it up and start creating our first app. Click on Create a new Xcode project. The first thing you'll see is templates for projects. Xcode provides a lot of app templates that you can use as a starting point when you're creating an app. The important thing to note here is that you're never locked into a certain style of app when you pick a template. These just provide an easy starting point. You can always add code or delete and add other things later if you change your mind on the type of app you want to create. So let's start with one of the simplest and most commonly used templates, which is single view application. Let's name the project My First App. Now look at the bundle identifier. This is a unique name that iOS uses to identify your app. Apple recommends that you use a reverse domain name like com.companyname.appname. The bundle identifier adds the app name onto the company name, so we just need to enter com.companyname as the company identifier. So I'm just going to type in com.theappdojo, and we can see that the bundle identifier makes it com.theappdojo.myfirstapp. The class prefix is a short 2 or 3 letter prefix that's automatically added onto some parts of our code. So when we write code, iOS doesn't get confused between the code that you write and the code that Apple writes. So I'm just going to enter TAD here for the App Dojo. Device family allows you to choose between iPad, iPhone, or Universal, where Universal is both iPhone and iPad. To start with, we're just going to use iPhone. Storyboard is an app layout tool that I'm going to show you how to use, so make sure that's checked. Automatic reference counting, which is called ARC for short, is going to allow us to write less code because it keeps track of parts of our app that are still being used, so we don't have to keep track of it ourselves. So make sure that's checked. Unit tests allow you to write a test that makes sure your code works. We won't do that for now, so make sure that's unchecked. And click Next. Now you want to choose where to save your app. I'm going to choose a folder in my documents called the App Dojo. This checkbox next to source control you can leave unchecked. Source control allows you to keep track of different versions of your code and revert back to those versions later if you need to. We're not going to be doing that now, so leave it unchecked, but we'll talk about it in a future lesson. Go ahead and click Create. So welcome to the Xcode main window. Yours might look a little different than mine, and that's okay. If you want it to look the same, you can toggle these panes in and out using these view buttons here. And you can change the view in each pane by clicking these options buttons here. So the first thing you'll probably notice is that this is a lot to take in. There's a lot going on here. Each new button brings up all sorts of new options. And it can be really confusing to try to figure out what it all means at once. And so, where do you even start? I found the best way to understand Xcode is to dive in and just start using it and understand each section piece by piece. So let's dive in and start creating our first app. Make sure the File Navigator is selected with this first option and select the main storyboard.storyboard file. Storyboarding is Apple's user interface tool, so this is going to allow us to build a functional interface without actually having to write any code. So the app we're going to build is an app for a restaurant. It's going to show the restaurant's menu and the restaurant's contact information. So the first thing I want to add is something called a navigation controller. A navigation controller is that UI component you have in the Mail app that will show that back button in the upper left corner when you transition to a new screen. Since we're going to have a restaurant menu, we want to be able to navigate back and forth through the different categories of food. So let's add the navigation menu. The first thing you want to make sure is that you have this utilities pane open and you want to navigate down here to the objects library and search for navigation. And just drag the navigation controller out into the main window. And I'm going to move this view controller that's already there down to the bottom. And this arrow here indicates the app's entry point. So this points to the first thing that the app shows when it starts up. And I want the first thing that the app shows to be the navigation controller, so I'm going to move the entry point up here. And I'm going to delete this existing view controller by pressing the delete button. So when our app starts up, it's going to show the navigation controller. And that navigation controller is going to contain this view. And let's name that menu. So this is going to be a menu with our different food options. And let's say on the menu we want to have 3 different options. We want to have drinks, appetizers, and entrees. And we want to have a different screen for each one of these categories. So to transition to each one of these screens, I'm going to make each one of those categories a button. So we're going to add 3 buttons to our main view here. So I just search for button, and now I'm dragging the buttons out into the view. And I can double click on those to name them. So I'm going to name the first one drinks. I'm going to name the second one appetizers. And I'm going to double click the third one and name it entrees. And you can resize those to make them look nice. Now this might be kind of confusing how you have 2 views here, and this one says navigation controller, and this is what's actually holding what the user is going to see. So the navigation controller, you can think of it as the blue bar on the top. It actually holds the other views. So when we add another view for drinks, it's going to be held inside the navigation controller. So let's start up our app by pressing the Run button here just to see what it looks like. And when you downloaded Xcode, it came with the iOS simulator. So this is going to show an iPhone on our screen, and it's going to show us exactly how this app would look if we were to put it on an iPhone. So this is what it looks like, and that's pretty much what we would expect. We've got a menu, we've got our 3 buttons for drinks, appetizers, and entrees. Right now they don't do anything, so let's change that. When we click on drinks, let's make it pull up a view with a list of drinks. So I'm going to close that app, and I'm going to press stop to stop running it. And I'm going to add a view controller. So I'm going to type in view controller. And I'm going to drag that into the storyboard view. So when I press the drinks button, I want it to open up this view that's going to show a list of drinks. So to do that, I'm going to hold down the control button, and I'm going to drag from the drinks button into the view controller that I just put here, and I'm going to release. And so there are these different options that come up when I do that. One is push, modal, and custom, and these are just the different ways that the iPhone can display this view. Since we have a navigation controller, I want to push this view on top of the navigation controller, which will give me that back button. If I didn't have a navigation controller, this push option wouldn't even be here. And I can do modal, which would just display the view over top of everything, but I wouldn't get a back button. So let's choose push. And then let's add a label that says drinks. We'll just call this drink 1. And a neat trick is you can hold option and then drag from the label to quickly create another one. So we'll have this one be drink 2. And we'll name this drinks. Okay, so now we should be able to run our app, and when we click drinks, it's going to bring up this drinks menu, and we'll be able to click the back button to go back to the main menu. So let's try that. So this is our app. This is the menu. If I click drinks, it takes me to the drinks. I see my list of drinks, drink 1 and drink 2. And if I want to go back, I press menu, and here I'm back. So now let's do the same thing for appetizers and entrees. Let's add views there, and then add those views for the different types of food. So again, it's the same thing. I'm going to type in view controller. I'm going to drag those out into the interface builder view. And let's just go ahead and add 2 at once. And I'm going to drag from appetizers to one of the views. And I'm going to select push to push it onto the navigation. And I'm going to hold control again and drag from entrees to the other view and select push. And you can zoom out to kind of move things around and organize. But unfortunately you can't edit while you're zoomed out. You have to zoom back in. So I'm going to edit the name of this one, which is appetizers. And I'm going to edit the name of this one to be entrees. And again, I'm going to search for label and drag it out. And again, I'm going to hold Option to create a duplicate. Let's just call this food 1 and food 2. And the same type of thing here for entrees. I'm going to double click to edit the label and call it entree 1. I'm going to hold Option and drag to create entree 2. So now we should have a pretty good menu going here, right? We should be able to click on drinks and go to the drinks view, click on appetizers, go to the appetizers view, entrees, go to the entrees view. So let's try that. So here's my app. I can click on drinks. I can see the list of drinks, appetizers, and entrees. It looks like everything's working just like we planned. So let's zoom out and get an overall view of our app. Now, if I'm a restaurant owner and I want this app made with my menu, I might also want some contact info there. And that's sort of a separate section than the menu. And I think a good way to display that might be in a tab bar controller. This is the kind of user interface component that you see in the iTunes app that allows you to switch from artists to albums at the bottom. So let's add one of those. To search for that, let's type in tab. And it's the second option here, tab bar view controller. So let's just drag that out. And it's automatically going to drag out with two separate views. So if I click the first option, it's going to take me to this view, and the second option is going to take me to this one. And this is similar to the navigation controller in that it's just a container that holds our actual content. For the first section, I want to be the menu. And our menu isn't actually a content view, it's actually a navigation controller that holds another content view. So to change that, let's delete item 1. So just highlight it and click delete. And then I'm going to click on the tab bar controller. And I'm going to hold down the control key and drag up to the navigation controller and click on relationship view controllers. So that's going to add the navigation controller, which holds our menu and everything, to this tab bar. And since we want the tab bar controller to be the first thing the user sees when they open the app, what are we going to do? We're going to drag this entry point down to the tab bar controller. And like we said, the reason we add this tab bar controller in the first place was so we could add two items down here, one that said menu. So let's go ahead and edit the name of it. Type in menu. And down here, we're going to name this one contact. And I'm going to add a label. And we'll just put a phone number there for now. So let's zoom back out and we see, so we've got our app. The first thing the user is going to see is the tab bar controller. And then they're going to have two options. They can go look at our restaurant's contact info, or they can go to the navigation controller, which is the menu, and look at the menu, all the different menu items. So let's see what that looks like. So here we go. It starts out with the contact, and I can click on the menu item down here and go through our menu just like we could before. And if I want, I can go back to contact and go back to menu at any time. Okay, so now I want to add one more little detail to the app just to show you how to do it. And I want to add a picture of a food, let's say on the entrees menu. So to add images into the app, I want to add an image view. So I'm going to type in image in my objects library, and I'm going to drag the image view into the view that I want it. So that's right here. So now I need an image to actually put into the image view. And to import an image into our project, all you have to do is just drag it into the project navigator. And I'm going to select copy items into destinations folder so I can delete this picture on my desktop and the app will still know where to find it. And so then I've got my muffin picture right there. And I can make this image a picture, the picture that I just imported, by going to the inspector, click the fourth option over, the attributes inspector, and up here where it says image, type in the name. Okay, and it's a little distorted. The way you can fix that is holding in command and pressing equals, and then it will show it to the right size. And so now we've got a picture, and let's run our app just to make sure that's working. So contact info, there's our menu, we added the picture to entrees, and there it is. Okay, so now we've got an app, and this is an app. I've seen a lot of apps like this in the App Store. Just a lot of content, some interactivity, you can decorate it with some images or pictures, and using these images are the same way that you would design a user interface. So instead of having just a picture of a muffin, you maybe could have a background image and then stack another picture on top of it of your different types of food. So in just the little bit that we've learned so far, you already know how to design some apps that are already in the App Store, and we haven't even written any code. And if you had a paid developer account and an iPhone, you could actually put this on your phone and it would run exactly the way it does on the simulator. So this is pretty good, and there are a lot of apps like this in the App Store. But if we want to do more, we're going to have to learn how to write some code. And we'll start doing that in the next lesson. Between now and the next lesson, to get some more experience with storyboarding, you should try to relay out our same app, but with two differences. Instead of starting with the single view application template, you should start with the tabbed application template. And add a desserts option on our menu that will open a list of the desserts in the restaurant. There will be a separate solution video for the challenge, so if you get stuck, you can figure out how to do it.